Hello and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are tackling a subject that I think haunts anyone who has ever laced up a pair of cleats or running shoes.
Or, frankly, anyone just trying to fit a workout into a busy week.
Right, exactly. It's the eternal question of dosage. We all want to get faster, we all want to get fitter, but how do we, schedule that pain?
Right.
Do we rip the bandage off and do one massive killer workout a week?
Yeah.
Or do we spread it out, nibble away at it, and train a little bit almost every day?
It is the classic debate of intensity versus frequency. And honestly, for years, the answer has usually been, well, it depends.
Yeah.
But today, we're looking at a study that controls the variables so tightly it gives us a really clear answer, specifically for high-intensity sports like soccer.
Exactly. So before we get into the sweat and the sprints, let's make sure we give credit where credit is due. Today we are deep diving into a paper titled Effects of Short Sprint Interval Training Frequency on Physical and Physiological Performance Adaptations in Male Soccer Players.
Authored by Qingwen Wanglong Wang, and Chuan.
And this was published very recently in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine.
Yep, that was in 2024, volume 23, pages 707 to 717. It represents a really fresh look at how we optimize performance in intermittent sports.
Okay, so the star of the show here is short sprint interval training. We are going to call that SSIT for short. And the central premise here is fascinating because they took a group of athletes and asked a really simple question.
Right.
If the total amount of work is exactly the same, does it actually matter how many days it takes you to do it?
That is the volume-matched condition, and I really cannot stress enough how crucial this is for good science.
Yeah, it changes everything.
It does. Usually in the real world, if you train more days, you end up doing more total work. And if you do more work, well, of course, you get better results. But here, the researchers ensured everyone did the exact same amount of sprinting per week. The only thing that changed was the distribution of that work.
So set the stage for us. Who are the guinea pigs here?
We are looking at 40 young male soccer players. These are college-level athletes in China competing at a national level.
So these aren't people who just started jogging yesterday.
Not at all. They're fit, highly competitive athletes. And because soccer is the focus, we have to understand the specific physiological demands of that sport. Soccer is what we call an intermittent sport.
Right. It's not like running a marathon where you just pick a pace, zone out, and listen to a deep dive for 3 hours.
Far from it. Soccer is physiological chaos. It requires explosive bursts of high-intensity sprinting, chasing a ball, tracking a defender, making a break for the goal, mixed with periods of low-intensity jogging or walking.
Right.
You need the anaerobic power to sprint, but you also need a massive aerobic engine to recover quickly so you can do it again 2 minutes later.
So the training needs to hit both of those systems. You need to be fast, but you also need to be able to repeat that speed over 90 minutes. And that brings us to the protocol. Walk us through exactly what these guys had to do.
The researchers split the players into 4 groups. First, you have your active control group. They just continued their normal soccer practice. Tactical drills, small-sided games, the usual stuff.
Okay.
Then you have the 3 experimental groups. They all did the short sprint interval training, or SSIT.
And when we say short, we mean really short.
Extremely short. We are talking about 5-second all-out sprints.
Yeah.
Maximum effort.
I love that. 5 seconds sounds like something I can handle. Well, I could do anything for 5 seconds.
Well, don't get too comfortable yet. They had to do a lot of them. The magic number for the week was 36 sprints. Every experimental group did exactly 36 sprints per week. The difference was just how they sliced up that pie.
Okay, let's unpack the schedules because this is where the dosage question really comes in.
Group 1 is the first SIT group. They did all 36 sprints in one single session, once a week.
Oof, that sounds miserable. 36 max effort sprints in one go.
It was intense. They broke it down into 4 sets of 9 sprints. Then you have the 2 SSIT group. They trained twice a week doing 18 sprints per session.
Right.
And finally, the 3 SIT group. They trained 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but they only did 12 sprints per session.
So the 3-time-a-week group is doing what we might call micro-dosing the workout. 2 sets of 6 sprints. That sounds almost too easy compared to the poor guys doing 36 reps on Monday.
That is exactly the hypothesis we are testing. Does the easy, frequent approach work as well as the hard single session? Or does the body need that massive shock to adapt?
And to measure if it worked, they ran these guys through a battery of tests that sounds absolutely exhausting just to read about.
They really left no stone unturned here. On the physical side, they measured the counter-movement vertical jump, which is basically raw explosive power. They did a 20-meter sprint for linear speed. They did the the Illinois change of direction test for agility.
Wow.
Yeah, they also measured maximal kicking distance. And for endurance, they used the Yo-Yo Intermittent Recovery Level 1 test.
The yo-yo test. The absolute bane of every soccer player's existence. For those who haven't had the pleasure, it is basically a beep test that gets progressively faster until you physically cannot keep up.
It is the gold standard for a reason. But they didn't stop at field tests. They also went into the lab for physiological measures. They measured VO2 max oxygen consumption. They looked at ventilatory thresholds, basically finding the exact point where your body switches from aerobic to anaerobic metabolism.
What a red line.
Exactly. And they did the Wingate anaerobic test to measure peak power output and average power output.
So we have the setup. 3 groups doing the exact same total work, just on completely different schedules. 6 weeks go by. What happened? Give us the headline.
The headline is a tie.
Untied.
Statistical tie. When you look at the average improvement for each group, all the SSIT groups improved significantly compared to the control group.
So?
Whether they trained once, twice, or 3 times a week, they all got faster in the 20-meter sprint. They all jumped higher. They all ran further in the yo-yo test.
Wait, so if the results are the same, why wouldn't I just do the 1-day-a-week plan, get it over with on Monday, and enjoy my life for the rest of the week? Why drag it out?
That is the logical conclusion if you only look at the surface level averages. But this is the deep dive, and we don't stop at the averages. Because averages can hide the truth about reliability and consistency.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because the researchers didn't just look at the group average, they looked at the individuals within the group.
Exactly. They analyzed something called inter-individual variability. They used metrics like residuals and changes and the coefficient of variation.
Let's translate that from science to English.
Think of it as scatter. If a training program has high variability, it means some players might improve by 20%, while others might not improve at all or might even get worse.
Yeah.
The average might still look good because of the high achievers, but as a coach, it's a gamble. You don't know if the specific player is going to respond.
Right. And if I am a coach, I don't want a training program that only works for the genetic freaks on my team. I want something that makes the whole roster better.
Precisely. And this is where the 3SIT group, the 3 times a week group, absolutely crushed the competition. They had significantly lower residuals in key physiological metrics, specifically VO2 max, ventilatory threshold 2, and peak power output.
So in plain terms, the 3 times a week strategy produced homogenized adaptations.
Yes. The adaptation was uniform. Almost everyone in that group improved predictably. In the 1 time a week group, the results were much more scattered. Some responded well to the monster session, but others really struggled to adapt.
That is a huge distinction. If I do the monster session once a week, I am rolling the dice on whether my body handles it well. If I do the snack sessions 3 times a week, I am almost guaranteed to see those aerobic and power gains.
And that consistency is what wins championships. You need the whole team operating at a higher level, not just a few individuals. You are effectively raising the floor of the entire team.
Now, there is another layer to this that I think is just as important as the physiology. We have to talk about the pain scale. Because if a workout makes you want to quit the sport, it is not a good workout.
Yes, the RPE, the rate of perceived exertion. They used the Borg 0 to 10 scale to ask the players, basically, how hard was that session?
And this seems like common sense, but the data is striking.
It is a complete inverse relationship. As the frequency increased, the perceived exertion decreased. The once-a-week group, who had to cram 36 sprints into one workout, rated the difficulty significantly higher than the 3 times a week group.
Even though, and I cannot stress this enough, they did the exact same amount of sprinting over the course of the week.
Same volume, totally different experience. The once-a-week group is dealing with massive acute fatigue. By the time they get to the 4th set of sprints, they are suffering, their lungs are burning, their legs are heavy.
Oh, absolutely.
But the 3 times a week group does 12 sprints, which is challenging, don't get me wrong, but it is manageable. They finish the session feeling energized rather than destroyed.
This brings up the enjoyment factor, or at least the I don't hate my coach factor.
We'll call it compliance. If a training program is miserable, athletes will find ways to sandbag it, or they'll dread it, or they'll just burn out. The microdosing model felt easier to the athletes, but, and this is the key, it delivered better consistency and physiological results.
It's the holy grail.
It really is. It feels easier, but works better.
So why? Why does splitting it up make the body respond more consistently? What is actually happening under the hood there?
It comes down to the quality of the stimulus and the recovery curve. When you do 36 sprints in one day, you induce a massive amount of metabolic fatigue. By the end of that session, your form is probably breaking down, your power output is dropping, and your body is just flooded with waste products like lactate and hydrogen ions.
So you are practicing being tired, essentially. You're
Yeah.
teaching your body to run sloppy.
In a way, yes. And that massive fatigue hole takes a long time to dig out of. The study suggests that this high-frequency fatigue might actually delay cardiovascular adaptations because the system is just trying to survive the trauma rather than adapt to it.
Whereas the frequent group,
They are hitting the system with a high-quality stimulus, maximum power, good form, and then stopping before they fall off the cliff. They recover quickly, and then 2 days later, they hit it again. This frequent stimulation of the neuromuscular system seems to be optimal.
this study mentioned alpha motor neurons, which sounds like a sci-fi weapon to me. What is happening there?
It's basically how your brain tells your muscles to fire fast and hard. The alpha motor neuron sends the signal to the muscle fiber. Frequent, fresh practice helps your nervous system learn to recruit those fast-twitch fibers more efficiently. You are greasing the groove, so to speak.
So by practicing speed 3 times a week when you are fresh, you're teaching the nerves to fire faster. Whereas if you do it once a week while exhausted, the signal just gets muddy.
Exactly. And peripherally, at the muscle level, frequent exposure helps with oxygen utilization. You are keeping the enzyme activity high, things like citrate synthase, without crushing the system. It's the difference between cramming for an exam all night versus studying for 30 minutes every day for a week.
The cramming might get you a passing grade, but the daily study helps you actually learn the material.
That is a perfect analogy. The frequent group learned the physical adaptations. The once-a-week group just survived the trauma of the workout.
I want to circle back to the specific metrics because the tie we mentioned earlier had some real nuance to it. You mentioned peak power output was one of the places where the 3-day split really shone regarding consistency.
Yes. In the Wingate test, which is a brutal 30-second all-out bike test, the 3 times a week group showed significantly lower residuals in peak power output changes. This means the improvement in explosive power was much more reliable across the team.
Right.
And for a soccer player, power output is everything. That is your ability to win a header, to accelerate past a defender, to take a hard shot.
And they also saw this consistency in VO2 max and VT2.
Right. VT2 is your second ventilatory threshold. It's essentially a red line. If you can push that threshold higher, you can run faster for longer without gassing out. The fact that the 3-day split improved this more consistently suggests that frequent exposure to high intensity helps the body manage that red line intensity better than one big shock.
So let's pivot to the practical side. We have listeners who are coaches, athletes, maybe just people trying to optimize their gym time. What is the takeaway here?
The biggest takeaway is don't be a hero on Monday. There is no physiological advantage to cramming all your high-intensity conditioning into one monster session. In fact, it's counterproductive for consistency.
Snacking on exercise is better than binging.
Exactly. And specifically, this study validates the utility of short sprint interval training. We're talking 5-second bursts. You don't need to run 400-meter laps to get fit for soccer.
That is a huge mental hurdle for some old school coaches, right?
Yeah.
The idea that 5 seconds is enough.
It is. But remember, it's all out. You have to actually sprint. But because it's so short, you tap into the phosphocreatine system, that pure explosive energy source. And by doing it frequently, you also tax the aerobic system during the recovery intervals. It improves both ends of the spectrum simultaneously.
And where do we put this in the workout? The study had a specific recommendation that I found really interesting.
They performed these sessions before regular soccer practice.
Interesting, because I would have thought you do the conditioning at the end as a finisher so you don't ruin the technical practice.
That is the beauty of the low-volume, high-frequency approach. Because the perceived exertion is lower, remember they only did 12 sprints, the players weren't wrecked, they got a potent physiological stimulus, but they still had the energy to perform technical drills and tactical work afterwards.
Right, if you did the monster session of 36 sprints before practice, the rest of the practice would be a complete waste of time. Everyone would be walking.
Exactly. Everyone would be exhausted. But with the microdosing model, you get the best of both worlds. You get the fitness gains, and you maintain the quality of your technical training.
That makes total sense. So for a coach listening, let's drop the plan. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, warm up, then what?
Do 2 sets of 6 sprints.
And what's the timing? 5 seconds on time.
The study used a 1-to-3 work-to-rest ratio during the reps. So 5-second sprint, 15 seconds rest. You do that 6 times.
That takes 2 minutes.
Then you take a 3-minute rest between the 2 sets, and then you do it again.
That is incredibly time efficient.
Yeah.
We are talking about roughly 7 or 8 minutes of actual drill time.
Extremely efficient. And for that tiny investment of time, you get significant improvements in VO2 max, agility, sprint speed, and jump height. It is a very high return on investment.
And you don't have players dreading conditioning day because every day is just a little bit of conditioning. It becomes routine.
Exactly. It changes the culture of training from surviving the punishment to consistent improvement.
I really love that concept. It takes the drama out of training. It's not about the montage moment, it's about the habit.
And that is supported by the data on variability. The frequent group didn't have drama, they just had results.
So to recap, we looked at a volume-matched study on SSIT, 40 soccer players. The group that split the work into 3 small sessions a week didn't necessarily get higher averages than the one-day group, but they got better quality results, more consistent, less variability, and much lower perceived pain.
They achieved homogenized adaptations. They elevated the floor of the entire team.
Which, in team sports, is often more valuable than elevating the ceiling for just one person.
100%. A team is only as strong as its weakest link, and this training method ensures the weakest links get stronger reliably.
This is one of those studies that feels like it changes how you look at your calendar. It's not about the big, scary deadline. It's about the daily grind.
Consistency is the superpower. It always has been.
If you want to dive deeper into the data tables, and there are some really great charts on the individual residuals that we described, visualizing that scatter, you really should check out the full article.
Yes, seeing the data visually really drives the point home.
Again, the paper is Effects of Short Sprint Interval Training Frequency on Physical and Physiological Performance Adaptations in Male Soccer Players in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine.
It is definitely worth a read, especially to see the breakdown of the physiological mechanisms we touched on.
And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure you are following the channel. Turn on those notifications. We are constantly combing through the research to find these nuggets that help you train smarter, not just harder.
Absolutely. We love doing the digging so you don't have to.
Before we go, I want to leave you with a thought. We just spent this time proving that microdosing your sprints is better than binge sprinting. It's better for your body, better for your mind, and more reliable.
It raises an important question for the rest of our lives.
Exactly. Where else are we sabotaging ourselves by trying to do one big session? Are you trying to learn a language by studying for 5 hours on Sunday? Are you trying to clean your entire house in a panic once a month?
Or are you trying to catch up on sleep on the weekend?
Right. If the physiology of the human body prefers small, frequent, consistent signals to adapt and grow, maybe our brains and our habits work the exact same way. Maybe the secret isn't the heroic effort, but the boring, small thing you do 3 times a week.
Trust the power of small, frequent consistency.
Thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.
See you next time.